We've seen Bitcoin double in anticipation of being wrapped up into an ETP, that's a cousin of ETFs, that was supposed to bring in many, many new investors. Billions upon billions of dollars came in to run ahead of the suckers who would buy the ETP when it was launched.
American television personality Jim Cramer gives his final plea for you to sell your Bitcoin, says the ETFs were a failure and you were a sucker if you bought.
The launch has been tepid to say the least. In fact, there's been an actual outflow of crypto ETP money for the past few days.
And let's get into that. I want to share with you the true numbers.
Overall, less than $1 billion of net new money has come in to these new spot Bitcoin ETPs since they started trading 2 weeks ago, when people thought there would be tens of billions of dollars coming in.
Update. BlackRock's ETF now holds about $2 billion in Bitcoin. They have been the biggest dip buyers. Fidelity is very close behind. And yes, Greyscale is massively selling. They started out with over $26 billion in Bitcoin. It was already there. And of course, what Jim Cramer won't share with you, some of this has been locked up for years, and many now have to wait 30 days to get back into better Bitcoin ETFs.
You have lots of investors that went into the Greyscale Bitcoin Trust at 2%. They bought it at the Bitcoin at 50,000, 60,000, 69,000. And so when the ETF became available and they were able to sell the Greyscale Bitcoin Trust and take a loss for tax purposes, and you guys know this, they have to wait 30 days before they can reload. But it's a great arbitrage for these people. They can go from a 2% trust into a 21 basis point ETF, and they have to wait, and there's a lot of churn.
You know, the entire market cap of Bitcoin was $487 billion on June 14th when BlackRock filed for their ETP, and then it rallied to $920 billion right before the spot ETP started trading, as Bitcoiners all over the world ran ahead of all the suckers who were supposed to come in and take them out of the trade.
So even though Bitcoin dipped, in total, just about 20%, which has been very normal, a great buy the dip opportunity.
Well, now Bitcoin's up a huge amount, and the expected boom is a bust. That means Bitcoin speculators are up huge, and the legendary Larry Williams, who predicted the exact top, is now saying that people are getting still one more chance to sell Bitcoin. But then it's all over but the shouting. Man, you know what? You can buy a lot of cashmere sweaters, a whole closet of them with that pricey Bitcoin. But the bottom line, as Wall Street increasingly realizes that it's time to ring the register, ka-ching, ka-ching, I'm begging you to take something off the table if you haven't done so already.
Now, over and over again in his career, Jim Cramer has told you to buy when you really should have sold, or told you to sell when you really should have bought. Good chance again to get out of crypto at the beginning of 2023. Bitcoin rose 40%. Netflix is a buy. Netflix went down to drop 57%. This is legitimately called the reverse Cramer effect. And even in the now infamous housing market collapse of 07, 08, when the banks started to go insolvent, like Bear Stearns.
I think my sources indicate that Bear's totally solvent, that there's not an issue. My understanding is very firmly that Bear is not in trouble.
Even Jon Stewart of The Daily Show confronted him back in the day.
How the hell did we end up here, Mr. Cramer?
Asked him why.
I can't reconcile the brilliance and knowledge that you have of the intricacies of the market with the crazy bull I see you do every night.
There's a market for it, and you give it to them, and I think
There's
we do.
a market for cocaine and hookers.
And let's not forget, Jim Cramer is a very smart individual. He is not just an American television personality, but a former hedge fund manager who knows how this works.
You knew what the banks were doing, and yet we're touting it for months and months. The entire network was. And so now to pretend that this was some sort of crazy once-in-a-lifetime tsunami that nobody could have seen coming is disingenuous at best and criminal at worst.
And even though Jim Cramer today is telling you, sell it now, sell a little.
It's the disciplined thing to do. I am not saying sell everything. I am not saying get out now. I am saying do a little schnitzeling, and you will regret it.
I think you will regret it. Not that taking profits isn't smart, and at top of cycles, if you believe this to be, it's always good. But at least give us the real stats, because the Greyscale selling, although it was maybe bigger than people expected, is almost over. BlackRock just lit up the Bitcoin ETF scene, leaving GBTC volume in the dust for the first time. This was yesterday. Actually, Bitcoin surged 5% yesterday after Greyscale ETF outflows fell almost 50% to now only 255 million. Imagine when they stop. And actually, compared to traditional markets, the Bitcoin ETFs were a huge success. Over 600 ETFs have launched since the start of 2023, and BlackRock's spot Bitcoin ETF is already in top 3 based on current assets. And new, BlackRock is on track to be number 1 by next week, with, by the way, Fidelity in the top 7 as well. And all this is before the big advertising, Google to start allowing Bitcoin ETF ads in just a few days, effective from the 29th of January.
Cryptocurrency does not seek to replace currency. It's a bad name. Cryptocurrency seeks to replace banking.
And in this 90-second clip, expert Brian Brooks simply explains the real reason why Jamie Dimon hates Bitcoin.
The core things that banks have done since the 1300s, those are going to go away, 100%. And let's just be clear what I mean by that. The reason that we even have banks originated in Italy around the year like 1340, all right? And the reason they originated was because of a set of accounting advances that allowed banks to serve as trusted intermediaries between parties that owed each other money. Before that, literally, I would write you a note and I would promise to pay you money and you'd put the note in your pocket and you'd see if anybody else would take the note. You know, that's why we refer to discounting notes. And then banks arose and it was like, you no longer need to do that. We'll take care of it for you, but you're going to have to pay us to do that. That function of needing a trusted intermediary to maintain ledgers of account to figure out, do I owe Brooks money or does Brooks owe me money? It turns out that function no longer has to be done by human beings. The same way we don't need postal clerks anymore. I can send you an email for free and it's instant and that's just the end of the post office. Sorry, but it just is.
And of course, banks are not going away. They're now only becoming specialized.
What's going to be left for banks is the high value add services, you know, structured finance, investment advisory, you know, all of the things that make a dynamic economy function. We still need people to do that. There's a lot of creativity going on in finance. But the core of banking, the base of the pyramid, the thing that drives most of their revenue, doesn't need to exist. And that's why I say, and I was saying to one of the organizers even before we stood up on this panel, cryptocurrency does not seek to replace currency. It's a bad name. Cryptocurrency seeks to replace banking.
This is an ongoing story. Click subscribe to stay informed. Help us get to 1.4 million. And if I can make one recommendation for you, be sure to watch this video, Top 5 Polkadot Parachain Crypto Gems. If you want to learn about newer, lower cap altcoins, this is linked down below. And be sure to catch myself and my brother in our new TV show premiering next month. It's Killer Whales TV. Like a crypto Shark Tank, and you have no idea how this will end.
I want to share something about us. Aaron and I, especially growing up, loved Pokemon. Classic card game we all grew up with. I would take my little Charizard, Aaron would take his little Bulbasaur, and I'd beat him every time. One thing that I loved about Pokemon, which obviously was a cultural phenom, was that community. It seems like you're in a very good place, so I don't understand the problem. Like, what is that next step to get you into the mainstream?
That was my question, is the numbers look great, but how come I've never heard of the game?
Like always, see you tomorrow.